Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Boca's Briefcase, where we discuss community and legal issues. And thank you to the Boca Raton Tribune for creating this platform where we can have these awesome discussions with the community. I'm very excited about today's discussion. A couple quick announcements. We had a guest on 2 weeks ago, Gramercy Salon in Meisner Park. Let's see, on Monday, if anyone lives near Meisner, they're hosting with a medical company COVID antibody testing all day Monday. So you'd have to make a reservation, but you can contact Gramercy if you're looking for COVID testing for antibodies. Also, I just want to briefly discuss, and I'll talk about it later. Next week, we're doing a discussion about Boca's Giving Back, and we're highlighting two places that really are in need, including a children's foster center. So if anybody's been doing spring cleaning, I'm going to post a whole list of things that are needed for next week, including food and children's clothing items, adult items. So very excited to host that. And when I post that, please share it because these places like Place of Hope and Boca Helping Hands are in need this summer, and especially the children. So before further discussion, we have two amazing guests, two of the most influential people I've ever met in my life. And they're very well known here in this community, especially. I'll start with Miss KAREN DEERWESTER. She's the owner of Family Time and Coaching and Consulting. She's been in countless magazines and books, Parenting Magazine, Parents Magazine, Essence Magazine. She runs a weekly podcast, See Me, Hear Me, Love Me, and she understands how each child and family is unique and celebrates the messiness of life with kids. We're so excited for your advice. KAREN DEERWESTER, welcome to the discussion.
I'm so excited to be here with you. Thank you.
Thank you. And also we have literally, in my opinion, internationally renowned singer who's taken her beautiful gift of voice, Rabbi Stephanie Shore, and she has shared this gift and dedicated it, becoming the founder of Cyber Synagogue, to nurturing and supporting individuals on the spiritual path. She has so much great advice. She runs a weekly meditation, which anyone can participate in for free on Facebook. It's Tuesday nights at 7 o'clock. She really has great tips to have a more positive life, healing and breathing. So we're very excited to have you as well.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yes. So I want to open the discussion because we're going to talk about work and stress life, but I want to open some of the parents and grandparents that are watching with families, because we're entering into a summer where there's not necessarily a physical camp every day or our normal family vacations. And I think, KAREN, you might have posted this article, I'm not sure, but I read an article by a teacher. And she posted in a magazine when homeschooling started. I'm so excited for homeschooling. I'm going to be the best teacher. I'm going to teach students, and I'm going to teach my own kids, and everything is going to be great. And a couple weeks later, she wrote she was crying more than her children. She had to move her Zoom camera up because the floor was messy. She threw her kids on the couch. She couldn't even teach them. So expectations. People have these high expectations of how they're going to run their households, and everything is turned upside down. Maybe you can speak on this. How do we approach this summer as parents or grandparents or families?
You're absolutely right. It starts with expectations for ourselves and for our children, because we want to be the best. We want to be the best parents. We want to be the best teachers. We want our children to thrive under the most amazing conditions. But we have a principle of early childhood practice that says we must meet children where they are, or ourselves where we are. Because if we do, then we avoid all those expectation traps, and we meet ourselves where we are and say, here's where I am: confused, crazy, insane, anxious, impatient. Also, wanting to have this precious, wonderful summer for myself and my child and my family. So we meet ourselves and our children where they are, and we create a scaffold to where we want to go. That could be literally like the end of the summer. That could be with sanity and our family intact at the end of the summer. But we can connect the dots, but once we have to accept where we are. And that is, some people are anxious to get back out into the world. Some are not anxious at all to get back out. And the article that I saw that I've been quoting, because I do think it's time to start tiptoeing, if not in reality, it's time to start opening ourselves up to the possibility that this is our summer. And so the article that I'm quoting is, do it like a goldfish, and start bringing that goldfish in the baggie into the new setting slowly and carefully. And then for what I'm doing for me personally and our family time families is a summer state of mind. How do I be present to what is? How do I add magic to that wherever I am? And then know that it's about multisensory experiences. If I can't get to a beach, how can I bring the experiences?
Well, Karen, can you, because I know you can't go over them all, they're all on your podcast and your show, but I want you to actually, can you give us some specifics of bringing summer home, bringing it into our home, where if you're sitting there with your kids, what do you do?
Yeah.
Forts is number one. I love the idea that people are building forts in their houses. Now, we live in Florida, so you may or may not want to do that outside. But this idea of open-ended play, and let children lead you and guide you. So whether it's forts, whether it's bike riding, whether it's outside picnics, whether it's swimming, whether it's, Rabbi will love this. We did a virtual Shabbat from everyone's backyard with water. We set up floating challah in the pools. So it's find what you love and connect to it. So what I've done specifically this week is I bought coconuts from Publix, and I have babies and toddlers, so it started with just rolling them and comparing them to other balls and peeling off those little hairy things and shaking them and listening to the water. Tomorrow I am cracking open those coconuts, and the goal is, can I get it so I can sip it? And then somebody I know from Jamaica is going to help me with this. We're going to make a spoon, because there is some sort of coconut jelly in there. So what do I know for summer? I have to take everything that I care about, summer imagery, summer associations, because that fills me up with meaning and playfulness, and then figure out how can I do something new and different this year for myself and the people I share those experiences with.
Have you received questions on if children are maybe disappointed that they can't do the things that they're always going to do, maybe how to approach a disappointed young child or child?
Okay, I know the rabbi is going to want to talk about that breath. The first response to disappointment is exhale, feel that, take that pause, because we're not comfortable with uncomfortable emotions. As grown-ups, we cover over them. For our children, we come in to fix them really quickly. What I know in this is that I am going to learn more emotional intelligence. The skills that I've been trying to teach children for 30 years, I know I have hands-on practice living it daily through COVID-19. So when they're disappointed, you start with, meet them where they are. See me, hear me, love me. I know. You were so excited, and it's so hard not to hug your friends. What's the first thing you want to say to that friend you can't hug? Again, depending on the age of the child, let's call them. Let's look at their picture.
So what I hear you're saying is you don't ignore it or just try to cover up the problem. You say, no, I understand this is what you're going through. What would make you feel better? Let's talk about it. You're addressing it. You're not just covering it up or switching the subject.
Meet children where they are, and then let them guide you to whether they want help or assistance. So for example, even just with the disappointment, once I acknowledge it, once I name it, once I can describe it, and under 2.5, I don't even want to label it as disappointment. I just want to say, no, you really want to see your friend. I would keep it even more simple than describing the word. And then I would say that I feel disappointed sometimes too. But then wait and see, do they just want to hug? Or do they need a different way to connect? Or so there's problem solving with children and all of those possible actions, because none of us express disappointment, anger the same way. And so there's a wonderful book about a little mouse that gets mad, and everybody says, stomp your feet, punch the ground, do this. And the mouse is like, I just want to sit for a minute by myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have a quick fix answer, but disappointment. How do we get comfortable with childhood?
I have a child right here. Hi, Allie. Say hi, everybody. Hi. So, okay, and anyone, by the way, if anyone has questions unique to your situation, please, thanks for stopping by. Bye. Please put them in the chat. We have Rabbi Shore and Karen here to answer your questions to help the community. Now, and Karen, you've brought up how to deal with children, but I know us as parents, me as an attorney, I'm also dealing with stress, and I'm going to move into Rabbi Shore here. It's funny that the world is reacting to this, and we're not even getting into what's going on in the world and social justice issues. That's just showing ourselves, and we're all emotionally upset about that. But today we're focused on our own homes. But as an attorney, I'm getting this continuing legal education focused a lot on mindfulness, meditation. It's required now. So my continuing education is now, are you distressing? What are you doing? So Rabbi Shore, who literally helps her congregants with this, what are some tools that we could use on a day-to-day, even if we're not 5 years old and we're 40-something? What can we do to help ourselves?
It's a great question. And I think one of the things that we can do right off the bat is acknowledge that we feel overwhelmed, that there is a overdrive emotion coming at us 24/7 these days. And so we have to acknowledge that we feel that pressure, that stress. What we can do about it, though, is we need to somehow carve out space to stop the thoughts, to stop the time. So one of the things we can do is just breathe. I am inhaling, I am exhaling.
Can I ask that everyone watching do this with you? Let's all just take a breath, just because we don't do this in our day today. You might. We'll take a breath with the rabbi.
So I'm going to ask everybody to take a nice deep breath in through your nose, and then we're going to exhale through our mouths. And that is a little bit of a different type of breathing for some of us. Some of us are nose breathers, some of us are mouth breathers, but to combine the two tells the mind there's something different happening here. I need to pay attention to what's happening. So, we could get into the mind a little bit if you want, Hilary. We can, talk about that.
I do. And I know you mentioned on sometimes even in your meditation, you mentioned, how do we feed the soul? So maybe we could start there. What does that mean to you? How do we feed our souls when we're going through this situation in the world right now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there is a very large part of us that we very rarely, and I don't want to speak for all of us, I just want to say that some of us may rarely check in with that part of ourselves. We may be so up in our minds thinking, not only, scientists say we think 60,000 thoughts a day. So they're coming in rapid succession, one after another, one after another. Below those thoughts is a peace and a quiet. So we want to be able to access that peace and quiet, because that's where the soul lives. That's where the heart lives. That's where our sense of being lives, not our sense of doing. Our sense of doing is the human doing. We're just thinking, we're planning, we're visioning. Sometimes we're regressing, but we're very often not in this moment. So
can you do that any time during the day, or do you have to really carve out that time and set aside some time to do that?
No, not at all. Look, 30 seconds, 15 seconds of breathing, of bringing yourself into the moment. As I said, literally saying to yourself while you're breathing, I am inhaling, I am exhaling. Sometimes I'll say to myself, where are my feet? Where are my feet right now? And bring myself to this
Take
moment.
a moment.
Mhm.
Oh, we've got Doug says we have a question. I'll let anyone answer this. Any ideas on a replacement for the handshake? I feel so awkward about not making that physical connection with clients and colleagues. That's a great question. Does anyone want to address it? And I can, that's from Heather Pendleton.
You want to go first, Karen?
Well, I've had some of my most wonderful moments social distancing with children. So it's not the same as with clients or grown-ups. So, but I remember wearing a mask and trying to stretch my elbow into 3 feet where a little girl was trying 3 feet. You know, for me, it's a playful expression of how do I connect with you and respect your boundaries and know where you are. So it's not a business answer for me, but I find that just trying, the elbow works for me. You know, in the beginning, we were doing that Wuhan dance with our feet. A wave, a namaste bow. I mean, there are so many ways to just acknowledge another human being's presence. So I think however the context dictates it, go for it. And I think the other thing that happens in the days of COVID-19 are take a risk. Nobody knows what they're doing. It's okay.
I think that's a good point. And most of my meetings have still been via Zoom, but I think you should just acknowledge the elephant in the room and don't pretend like it doesn't exist. Just say, you know what, this is an odd situation, so it's great to see you, and just hold your hands together. And that really tells someone, you know, you don't want to shake hands, but you're very excited to see them, you know, give a positive thought. I'm glad we're having this meeting. I would probably continue to do something like that for now.
You know, I've run into friends when I started to go back out and kind of integrate into the community again. And I've seen friends that want to give me a hug. And so we just kind of hug ourselves, knowing that we're hugging each other. And that's, you know, that's something else that we can do to really show affection. When we're in a setting where that's not necessarily appropriate, you know, one of the things that we've said, you know, holding hands, gesturing that, you know, I acknowledge you, I see you, and I'd like to be able to touch you and hold your hand, but it's just not necessary, and it's not appropriate right now.
I had another question sent to me on the side, and it has to deal sort of what we talked about at the beginning with expectations, but it's a general issue of stress is that the children just seem to be on technology all day, and my household is very stressful. I'm not sure what to do. So
could you ask how old the child is?
I don't have an indication of how old the child is. I don't know.
I certainly think in all cases, we know that technology is addicting. Those of us that are checking our social media on a regular basis know that it takes time it takes practice to not look. So I think creating alternatives that either you have some practices where you're throwing devices in a basket, or you have some screen-free time in a day, go for that. Otherwise, encourage your children to be interactive, engaged, and meaning-making. So what I'm learning is that when we're introducing very young children to screen time, to Zooming and to YouTube videos and music, try not to think of it just as a screen. Think of it as the screen is delivering connection and presence, and let the child sing, dance, move, so that they aren't just sitting passively in front of a screen, but they're truly interacting with it. And look for opportunities in that screen engagement where they can run and grab something, where they can share something, where they can bring themselves to that screen experience.
Oh, that's such good advice. There's so much good advice on this discussion. Thank you. And before we had the other question, I was about to ask Rabbi Shore, we discussed before this started, some of the tools you were talking about were simple breathing techniques. And you also mentioned before this, replacing thoughts. Can you tell us what replacing thoughts are, and in your own words?
Sure. The mind is very one track. It's not like a computer where you can have multiple windows open and kind of multitask like that. The mind can think one thought at a time. So if we can replace that thought, whatever it is that's burdening us, whatever it is that's causing that stress and anxiety, will have a tendency to repeat over and over and over throughout the day. So if we can come up with, let's say, a beautiful place that you like to go, if it's the beach or a park or somewhere where you can engage your senses, you can see the birds, you can smell the flowers, you can feel the air on your skin. That's a way that we can replace the thought, and we can begin to bring ourselves back to that place of peace again. Ultimately, we want to stay in a place of balance. And if we're in that place of balance, then we'll have less stress. We'll have less anxiety. Life will happen. It's not to say that life isn't going to happen, but we can walk through it a little more calmly.
I read, but before this, and I think it stuck with me because we were going to have this discussion. I wrote down his name, a famous Buddhist monk and poet, and he's a human rights activist, Thich Nhat Hanh. You might be more familiar with him than me, but, and I hope I don't completely destroy his thought here, but he had this advice that really we're all animals, and I'm sure Rabbi Shore could explain this so much better. We're all animals, but we forget our instincts as humans. And if we think of what an animal would do if it was hurt or stressed in the forest, its instinct is to stop, calm, rest, and heal. So if you picture a small fox in the forest, if it's hurt, it goes to a place of safety. It stops, breathes. It gets to where it's protected and then heals. And we ignore our own instincts, according to this famous monk. We just ignore what we should be doing to calm ourselves, but we have those tools in us already. So I thought that was amazing. And I don't know if anyone wants to continue on that thought line. That really affected me. We ignore our own instincts.
You know, it reminds me of the commercial, and I don't know the brand, so, and I won't say it, but the essence of the commercial is saying, it doesn't matter if you don't feel good, it doesn't matter if you have a backache, it doesn't matter if you have a headache, you can take this pill and it'll make your symptoms go away, and you can rush out into the day and be the warrior and be the strong one. And that's, that's opposite of self-care. Self-care is acknowledging, today I don't feel so good. And so I'm going to need to make some adjustments within my day. I may not be able to not go to work, but when I go to work, I'm going to be conscious of how I feel. And that's, I think, something that we're lacking in our culture. And Hilary, you made mention of it just now, is tuning into our feelings. Karen knows that kids are really, really good at this. They jump up and down when they're super excited, and they cry when they're sad. And we as adults have just shut that down. We've said, no, that's not the way that I can act in the world. It makes me vulnerable. It makes me too exposed, and I just don't want to do that.
And Karen, I read an article, and I'll also let you continue, but that some children, they don't know how to react to this pandemic, this COVID. So they might not be scared of the germs, this and that, but they react in a different way, perhaps. And I heard pets, not to compare pets and children, but both are becoming more clingy. You might have a child that's not been very clingy, and that might be one of the ways a child's expressing their own fear, but they can't express it. So a child might be regressing in that way. Should we embrace that? Is that okay? Okay.
First, for all parents, I want you to switch out a different word for regression. Development isn't linear, so there is no such thing as regression. You've seen those Facebook memes of going from point A to point B, and everybody thinks it's going to look like this, but it really looks like this. That's how development works. That's how growing and learning works. So it's not regression. That children are clingy is never a bad thing. It's about walking the balance between unconditional love, I've got you, and also you've got this. I am your emotion coach and your parenting partner that will show you how to get through this. And so tying that into another part of that animal reaction to the world. Yes, it's wonderful that that animals know to pause, to be calm, to take breaks. But the other thing that happens between our downstairs brain and our upstairs brain is our downstairs brain goes into amygdala hijack, fight or flight. So what happens with children when they're melting down and having tantrums and falling apart and acting out is that fight or fight part of the brain is activated. So we do need to get that calm. We need to get to the reset. We need to say, I will hold you while you go through that moment. And then we can, once we feel safe and calm, only then can we activate our executive function, our upstairs brain, to say, now, what do I need? And I love that question because I think that is the question of all emotional intelligence. How do I know what I need? And my favorite song about that was taught to me by Stephanie Englander from B'nai Torah, and it's called, I'm hungry, I need a Band-Aid. And that song is a way to give children a game to play or create a family shtick that's like, you're hungry, you need a Band-Aid, you're crying, you need a popsicle, you need a hug. Go through the problem-solving spectrum and say, now look within and let me know what you really need. Because I can help you find it. I can help you get there. I am your emotional partner and your unconditional love. So they can be clingy. They can be bouncing off walls. Children can be wherever they are, whoever they are. We're ready to help them if we're taking care of ourselves.
Right. I feel like this discussion, I mean, this needs 2 weeks of a virtual discussion. And again, anyone watching, if you have questions, feel free to ask. I mentioned at the beginning of the show, and I'm just going to plug it again, next week's discussion, we have, if anyone's spring cleaning, we have a couple non-for-profits that will be highlighted next week that are really in need, including foster care, foster home for children, Place of Hope, Boca Helping Hands. They're looking for clothing and certain foods. I will be posting it. So please join us next Wednesday. You might have some of these items at home, and some of these facilities really need them. So Karen, what you just said was amazing. I would like for both of you to sort of, if families or individuals who are personally stressed, or mothers or fathers are listening to this, what one piece of advice would you like to leave with them with today to sort of take with them as they walk away today? One tool or one item. And also, please, I want you to promote yourselves, how people can follow you or find you, because I know people are anxious to get more, and we can't get all that information in today.
Please go first. Go on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You can find me under Karen Deerwester on Facebook, Karen_Family Time Inc. on Instagram, familytimeinc.com, b'naitorah.org. But my final thought is for children and for us. We've never been through this before. So allow yourself time to do things for the first time, to live in uncertainty, ambiguity, to make all emotions safe for yourself and for your children. These are going to be the emotional intelligence lessons that are going to create a generation of children who are better equipped with resilience, determination, grit, understanding, empathy, and compassion than ever before. But the mantra that I will leave you with through that uncertainty is not forever, but for now. What are we going to do today? Not forever. Don't lock yourself into forever. We will have hugs and connections in the way that we are grieving and missing. But for now, do the things that fill you up, fill your children, keep your family sane, and stay connected. We are in a magnificent community, small and large, here in South Florida and in Boca Raton. So stay connected to all of us. We're here for you.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much.
It really was.
Rabbi Shore.
Yeah, it's not so different for children than it is for adults. We are children ultimately at some point within ourselves. I would say that again, the most important thing is to bringing ourselves back to this moment, and not. Of course, we have to plan. Of course, we have to take care of our families, take care of ourselves. We have to know, what's coming immaterially and those kinds of things. But as far as our spirit goes, we really need to check in with the idea of having hope, of having faith, of having trust that ultimately we are okay. We are okay. Now, there are people out there that have had serious effects from this pandemic. And these are difficult, difficult times. We need to be able to come together, lean on one another, share with one another what's really going on. And maybe we'll find that one person, two people that we can get vulnerable with so that we can feel that we're not alone. We're never, never alone.
So beautiful. I just, you're both, again, so influential. And how can people contact you and follow you and join your meditation or join the Cyber Synagogue?
Thank you so much. So yeah, you see my website down there at cybersynagogue.com. We're also on Facebook, Cyber Synagogue, one word, Cyber Synagogue, and you can follow us there and tune into our meditation. We have services for Shabbat on the weekend. It's really a very, very beautiful community.
That's awesome. And I know that the Boca Raton Tribune will also be constantly highlighting you both, so it's awesome. Thank you so much for the discussion today. And to everyone out there, please just take a moment to breathe today, use some of the tools we've gathered, and just lower, perhaps I took from it, our expectations, maybe lower them, not lower them, but it's okay if they're not, if the day-to-day is not what we expected, and to go with it. So thank you again so much. And thank you to the Tribune. And we'll see you next week for a very special Boca Gives Back with Place of Hope and Boca Helping Hands and the incoming president of the Rotary. So thank you so much.